affect America and other world. So what place in the world history do you want to take? And do you associate yourself with any famous historical figures?
Yeah, I'd say George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. I would say I'm far superior to George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Now, you know I'm only kidding, right? Because when I say that, the fake news is going to go wild. They're going to say he considers himself to be better than Washington. But you never know. You never know. I don't compare myself to anybody. I'm here to do a job. We've had a great 35 days or whatever it might be, a month, a little more than a month. We've accomplished tremendous amounts. Not only this would be a very great achievement if we could get the war stopped and get them back to normalization. I think that's going to happen. We've had very good talks on both sides, as you know. But I think we've done a very good job, just generally. If you look at all of the things we've done in 30 days, they're saying there's never been a opening for a president. The first month, there's never been a first month like we've had. And this is one of the very important things. This, to me, is one of the most important things because we have tremendous death taking place as we speak, and I don't want to have that. You know, think of the parents, whether they're in Russia or Ukraine, think of the parents of all these people being killed needlessly.
They came to our territory.
Should have never started. This would have, if I were president, this would have never started.
Mr. President, will you continue sending military aid to Ukraine after the U.S. signs this agreement with Ukraine?
Yeah, we're going to be continuing.
President Zelenskyy, do you feel like the U.S. is on your side, that President Trump is on your side at this moment?
Right.
What do you think?
He wants to know, do you think that, sort of a stupid question. I guess we wouldn't be here if I wasn't. But,
I think that the United States on our side from the very beginning of occupation, and I think that President Trump on our side, and of course, I'm sure that the United States President will not stop support. This is crucial for us. It's important for us. Yes. And Putin, the president, speaks about the people and the soldiers which are dying, but they came to our territory, they came to our land. They began this war, and they have to stop. And I think this is the question, with really the most important question. Can President Trump, I hope yes, with some other allies, to stop Putin, withdraw these enemies, our enemy, withdraw these troops from our land? And I think that you asked about the history, I think that if President, or when, he will stop Putin, if President Trump will bring peace to our country, I think he will be on this wall, I think.
We've had very, very good talks.
Mr. President, what about military aid to Ukraine?
President Zelenskyy just said that there will be no compromises with Vladimir Putin. I just wanted to ask both of you, firstly, are there compromises that you think that President Zelenskyy is going to have to make? President Zelenskyy, is there anything that you might be thinking that you may be able to offer or bring to the table, for example, elections? Thank you.
I think you're going to have to always make compromises. You can't do any deals without compromises. So certainly he's going to have to make some compromises, but hopefully they won't be as big as some people think you're going to have to make. That's all. That's all we can do. I'm here as an arbitrator, as a mediator to a certain extent between two parties that have been very hostile, to put it mildly. They've been very hostile. There's been a vicious war. There's been a vicious war. You know, it's a very level battlefield, and those bullets go out, and as I've said many times, we were talking about it with Pete, many times the only thing stopping those bullets is a human body. And in the case we're talking about, generally young human bodies are stopping a lot of bullets. It's dead level. That's why it's great farmland. It's great land. It's great farmland, but there's very little protection against the bullets that are being, and other things that are being shot. So all I can do is see if I can get everybody at the table and get an agreement. And I think we're going to end up with an agreement. Otherwise, I wouldn't probably be even here today.
Mr. President, compromises?
Mr. President, I've got two questions for you. You think ultimately your legacy will be the peacemaker and not the president that led this country into another war?
Well, you've just been watching President Zelenskyy and President Trump at the White House, where that was cordial. It got a lot more bad-tempered a little later on, with Donald Trump accusing Volodymyr Zelenskyy of being disrespectful and of gambling with World War III. Zelenskyy has now left the White House early. The scheduled news conference has been cancelled. Much more on this in our later news programmes. But now it's time for Lee Anderson's Real World.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield. And joining me tonight, it's a first, it's Susie Stride. She's our left in the corner and a former advisor to the Labour Party. Is that right, Susie?
Well, I mean, I'd more describe myself as a former parliamentary candidate, but back in the day, I did a little bit of advisory.
Oh, OK, and he's back. It's Henry Bolton.
It is.
Former UKIP leader and now a member of the SDP. Is that right?
That's right.
Are you feeling well?
Oh, I'm feeling
How many
fine.
fingers have I got up?
About 10.
10, there you go. There you go.
No,
He's not feeling very well at all. But listen, guys, serious point that this week we saw on Monday night in Camborne in Cornwall, I think it was Antifa turned up, who tried to stop a conference, a Reform UK conference. It got pretty unnerving. I think that's probably the best word for some of the people entering the venue. Just have a look at this clip here, guys, and tell me what you think.
Anti-fascist! Anti-fascist! Anti-fascist!
So, Susie, you've seen the clip. Angry mob, masked up. I think one of Nigel's security guards had 2 teeth knocked out as well. No arrests made. Surely this has got to stop. And, you know, just this week I met with the Speaker again at the Speaker's conference to discuss MPs' safety. But it's more about, it's more than just MPs. It's about political candidates. It's about activists. It's about people who support political parties and free speech.
Yeah, I think it's really important, isn't it? Like, if you want to have good debate, if you want to have, I would even say, good democracy, you know, you've got to have that place where people can share what they think, have their opinion, not be cancelled and all this other rubbish. You know, you can disagree, but there's got to be that level of, you can call it tolerance, you can call it whatever you want. I believe in respect, you know, and respecting the other person. And I think actually one of the things that makes our country great is we're not a country of these great extremes. Now, we had this problem with the hard left in our party, going back whenever it was 5 years ago, where there was, it's that intimidation part, which I just think is not acceptable. And I think it is really important, especially as we have seen, you know, we've seen the death of MPs.
Yeah, and Emma, it always seems to me, from the conferences I've been to and rallies, which is Conservative and Reform UK conferences and rallies, it always seems to be the hard left at these conferences outside with the masks on, causing problems. Yeah. You know, I went to one a few years back in Birmingham, a Tory conference, quite terrifying, walking from the hotel to the actual conference centre, people shouting and spitting and throwing stuff at you. What
yeah, well, I've experienced it myself when I was the leader of UKIP. And yeah, it's the left. And you don't see it coming from the right nearly so much. There's a little bit. But, you know, these people are fundamentally anti-democratic. Yeah. As Susie says, these people are trying to shut down free speech. If you don't have freedom of expression of your opinions, you cannot have democracy. It's fundamentally anti-democratic. And I'm going to be even more sort of firm on this and say, you know, back in the day, before Tony Blair messed around with it, the definition of terrorism was trying to bring about political change through the threat or use of violence. Yeah. Now, this is the threat, and to an extent, the use of violence for a political purpose. And I'm not going to call it terrorism, but it is verging on that. And for the police not to take action, and, you know, I'm a former police officer as well, and there are occasions when it is very difficult to make arrests. I wasn't there. But we've got to, as a nation, confront this violence in politics and this intimidation, because otherwise our democracy fails. And it fails if only because people are afraid to stick their head above the parapet and express themselves.
And I'll tell you what, Susie, people, you know, have a pop of toes, me and Nigel and Richard and Rupert and James, and that's fair enough. We can handle that. But when you see members of Parliament like Sarah Sultana putting stuff on her ex Twitter feed. You know, Nigel's coming to Birmingham with a big cross through him, encouraging people to turn up and demonstrate against this. Surely this has got to stop.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is my thing. I think it's absolutely fair enough for people to challenge ideas, to challenge and to debate, you know, and even, you know, if you want to get a bit leery and angry about it, that's fine. What is not acceptable, any form of violence, any form of intimidation, any form of harassment, you know, and I think it's problematic on social media. We're going to talk about online safety bill stuff later, and it's problematic in the things that you're saying. There's nothing wrong with people saying, I don't like reform, I don't agree with their approach to this. The intimidation stuff, the harassment stuff, that, you know, people getting a milkshake thrown in their face. Like we've said, in the last 10 years, we've had, is it 2 MPs in the last 10 years? I can't remember. You know, it's not acceptable. Again, one of the things that makes this country great is we do not have that within our politics. There is that level of respect that, you know, off the camera, people talk and there is that working together for the common good.
Well, let's talk about the online safety bill, because there's a fine line between freedom of speech and harassment, bullying. We see some horrible stuff now online, and the big tech companies, I think, should police it better. I think they need to take more responsibility. I'm a little bit suspicious of the online bill, but it might go too far.
I think it could easily go too far. And again, as a former police officer, I would say that all the laws are already in place to be able to act. The thing is that we've lost sight of that legislation because we've, for again, political reasons, so the operational sort of pursuit of enforcing those laws has been undermined. We need to return to that, not more and more legislation which can be used to actually do what we've just been talking about, which is suppress or intimidate freedom of speech and expression of opinions. And so that, I think, is fundamental. When it comes to the tech companies, you know, I'm not a techie guy, and I don't know how difficult it is to vet these things with the sort of millions of messages that are posted. But we need to have that discussion with them in a mature and sensible way. And going back to the previous point, just very briefly, one of the strengths of mature political discourse is that you can have a discussion and an exchange of opinions about what the problems are and what the solutions are, what we should do about things, across parties. You know, you can disagree with somebody, fine, but if you disagree with 99% of what they say, if you're listening to them, you might agree with 1% and go away with a good idea. And we've got to get back to that rather than the antagonism that is built by all of these people, whether it's people who want to pass laws that are oppressive, potentially, or whether it's people...
Well, I'm going to come back to Susie. I mean, the internet, Susie, is like the Wild West sometimes. I mean, people are getting away with saying all sorts of outrageous things. We've got AI now. I've seen some videos floating around on Twitter this week of me and the speaker and a few other people. But it's pretty good at what people can get up to these days on the internet, and they could actually ruin somebody's career, reputation. Will the online harms bill, when it becomes an act of parliament, because it will that stop this?
Well, I mean, this is where we are going to fundamentally disagree. And if I'm honest with you, I believe that the oppression of free speech is happening because these people are not doing their job. I think already, go back to Twitter 10 years ago, actually it was quite a good space where, you know, I used it all the time for political discourse, campaigns, etc. Now, I don't even bother most of the time. Level of sometimes harassment, abuse, the algorithms, what Elon Musk has done to it is a joke, and their safety for me is an utter disgrace. And I would be, you know, this is something that I'll go to the streets on, do you know what I mean? Obviously not. And what I find frustrating with it is, you know, I did some stuff pro-democracy Iranian stuff, and they took down my videos because I was fighting against the Iranian government. So they can do that, but they can't take down these other harmful videos.
Yeah, but the scary part for me, Susan, is you can pretty much get away with lots of stuff in this country at the moment, because I think the policing is quite poor. Yeah, we've seen, I think it was just last week, where a grandmother had made some comments on Facebook about the WhatsApp group with the suspended Labour MPs. You know, a day later, the police are knocking on the door and having a chat with her.
But isn't a lot of this that people are anonymous? They can post things almost anonymously. They're not accountable. And so, you know, there are people who come out with the most vile abuse online who would probably never do it to your face. They feel empowered by that anonymity. And I mean, it's a fairly
I'd
thing might be to
last year.
But that's why you've got to listen to me. This is why you've got to regulate, and it's really important because we do believe in free speech. Free speech is so important, but you lose free speech when you have this, where there's abuse and harassment.
I agree, but
Children won't speak out.
Socially.
Children won't speak out in the classroom if they think they're going to be cut down. People don't speak out and they don't feel like they can because of the abuse and the harassment. But it's not just that.
I mean,
that regulation needs to be there.
Just exposed to some of the broadness of this conversation because children at school, I don't think should have mobile phones with them. I absolutely don't.
I agree.
They're almost encouraged.
I'm also happy to agree with that as well.
Because they sit there and they sit in the playground. They exchange messages with each other whilst they're next to each other in the playground. The schools are actually encouraging it because the children are expected to have apps on there which have the timetable and so on. So there's a real problem with that. And then, you get teenagers doing this and they grow up thinking that's normal behaviour.
But guys,
it permeates the whole society. And we want to get back to social policing in a sense, through peer pressure.
We still live in a free democratic society, allegedly. And we have a choice whether we go on social media or not. And I see when you go to a pub and you see a family there round a dinner table in the pub, and every single one will be on the mobile phone. I think we're all guilty of it. And they're all texting or Snapchatting or Instagramming or whatever. And they're not actually talking to each other. So really the problem lies within the family group sometimes.
But it's also about disinformation. There are an awful lot of people who are passionately defending a particular piece of information online, and they've got no direct knowledge of it or experience of it.
This is why we should be uniting and saying, the fact that Donald Trump is going to hold to ransom, British people.
Encourage.
Hold to ransom. I'm using that language. I'm not scared of Donald Trump. And hold to ransom British people. The vast majority of British people want those big tech giants to be properly regulated, from Google, so people can't search ways for suicide, and that poor girl that that died. We want to protect those kids, and the fact that we would put Mark Zuckerberg and these billionaires above those kids, for me, is a disgrace. I really hope he doesn't get his way, and I really hope that Nigel, when he's going over there, that he is saying to Trump, no, let's be on the right side of history here.
But I think one of the things we've got to avoid...
Finger wagging there.
Yeah, there was a bit, wasn't there? But one of the things we've got to avoid, though, all of this is good. The intention is fine. OK, what is not fine is politicians, and we've seen it from this government and from the police as well, so the law enforcement and judicial sort of side of life, actually using these pieces of legislation that we'd like to see intended and used to deal with some of the problems that you quite rightly talk about, to actually oppress and shut down debate and topics.
Well, Henry, I've got to shut you pair down now. Thanks, guys, but do not go away, because coming up next, we're going back in the day with comedian John Martin.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
One former Royal Marine has just set up a state-of-the-art new fitness brand which combines fitness, dating, clubbing. It's all in a very unique experience.
Yes, Will McLaren and co-founder Toby Spooner have managed to fuse well-being, dating and what they call community building in their new full-day event, Metrix, which also includes high-intensity workouts. Will and Toby are joining us now in the studio.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, gents. Thank you for joining us. I'm very interested in this because all I seem to see at the minute is high rocks. But from what I've read about Metrix, this seems like the new upgraded version. What can you tell us about it? Tell our viewers all about Metrix.
Well, it is a fitness competition, but we are combining the music and production element. Also, we want it to be quite a social event as well. So we want people to come, meet each other and have a great day out.
So What does that actually mean? Tell us a little bit more in detail. Toby, just tell us a little bit about what's involved.
So, in short, it's an immersive fitness competition.
Yeah.
So, you can do a partner workout, you can bring a friend, or we can actually make people. So, we're adding that dating
Well, it was
element.
Valentine's yesterday.
Precisely,
So
right.
is this going to be the new Tinder? People going along to Metrix and meeting their future partner?
Well, exactly that. So, we've done a load of research into it, and what we found is that exercise is slowly becoming more of a dating scene.
So is it, I assume, some behind the scenes of what Metrix will look like? Because it's still to start, isn't it? Is it big March it begins?
Yeah, so the 1st and 2nd of March, so it's in 2 weeks, at a magazine in North Greenwich.
We've known each other for a fair while, but we kind of put our heads together. So we've worked in fitness for years, and we found that music really drives performance. And people love music. People will come to our classes, they'll come away and they'll say, music was so good. And it just elevates the experience. We said, how can we put this on a scale, tenfold?
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm delighted to be joined with the Human Joke Factory, that's what we call it. It's John Martin, comedian for many, many years. You've written jokes for some of the best, most famous, best loved comedians in this country, people like Ken Dodd. Mate, how did you become a comedian?
Well, can I say before we start, it's a pleasure to be here, Lee. My wife drove me, so it's a pleasure to be anywhere, to be honest.
I know you're a laugh a minute, you're going to be cracking these jokes, but how do you become a comedian?
Well, I grew up in a place called Bootle near Liverpool. I always say it's like the Cotswolds end of Liverpool is Bootle.
Really?
It's not an affluent area. Boole's great. Boole's a bit like Romania without the gymnastic ability, to be honest. But I grew up in a tiny little terraced house with my mum and dad and 6 kids. So there was 8 of us in a 2-bedroom house.
In one bed?
No, but I never actually slept on my own until I got married. We grew up in this little house, and my dad worked all the clubs. In them days, there was working men's clubs on every corner, you'll know, or like Labour clubs, Conservative clubs, on every corner. And my dad was a magician and a ventriloquist. And he was a brilliant magician, my dad. He could make an audience disappear quicker than anyone.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've all done well as kids. You know, I've got a brother who's a barrister. He makes coffee in Starbucks. So, you know...
Yeah, barista, I got that.
You know, we've all grown up and...
But we was talking earlier about... I was with Mick Miller a few weeks back.
Oh, wonderful comedian.
Great comedian. I mean, he's telling 50-year-old jokes.
Yes.
But he still made the whole room laugh.
There's nothing wrong with 50-year-old jokes. No. I mean, Ken Dodd, the great Sir Ken Dodd, used to say, there's no such thing as an old joke. There's only a joke that people have heard before. And if Ken Dodd says it, it must make sense. So yeah, well, I mean, when I was a kid, I wasn't very clever, I'll be honest with you. I had what they call a lazy eye, and it just spread to the rest of my body.
So who was your favourite, who is or was your favourite comedian?
Well, some of the best comedians now are in Parliament, of course.
Yeah.
No offence, Lee.
Thanks for that.
But yeah, I mean, I grew up watching all the great wonderful comedians on television on a Saturday night and Sunday night. Ken Dodd, who I've mentioned, he was the greatest. I always say there's 2 types of comedians, in my opinion. There's those who say things funny and those who say funny things. Just a little difference. Tommy Cooper, of course, we could read a shopping list and you'd say, oh, that's funny, just because Tommy Cooper said it. So he would say things funny, and he didn't know why, he just did. On the other hand, there was Bob Monkhouse, the wonderful genius Bob Monkhouse, who wasn't funny, but he would say the most brilliantly funny things, wonderful things. So people who say things funny and those who say funny things. And in my opinion, Ken Dodd was the only person I ever saw that had both to the maximum.
Yeah, so you'd have written a lot of gags for comedians in the past, so it must be quite satisfying for you to either sit there in the audience or watch TV and hear one of your gags being read out.
Oh, it's wonderful if it goes well. I mean, basically you're labouring for a comedian. You just, you know, when Sir Ken Dodd sadly passed away at the age of 90, he was still doing shows at age 90. Yeah. Incredible. I was on all kinds of news channels and BBC News and this, that, and the other, and they always asked me the same question: what was it like to write jokes for Ken Dodd? And I said it was such an honour that I can only compare to being asked to mix the paints for Van Gogh.
Yeah.
It was that big an honour. So if the gags worked, it was wonderful. If they didn't, you'd try and hide in the corner somewhere, because, you know, you don't get a guarantee with a joke, especially, you know, when I'm churning out all this topical humour, which is my forte, all these topical jokes. No guarantee, they're all brand new jokes, so, you know, you just hope.
But we live in an age now, John, where some of the comedians which were really big in the 80s, I think of people like Bobby Darboe and Jim Davis, and they've sort of been cancelled now because of their humour. And
well, it's changed, Lee. You know, comedy's changed. You know, you can't. They don't even want jokes anymore on television. You know, an actual joke. Yeah. They used to say to me, "No, we don't want jokes now. We want." It's changed to be observational humour, where they talk for 2 minutes, and some of it's brilliant. You know, make no bones about it. But just my style, Bobby's style, and all, you know, it kind of got pushed to one side. I mean, it started when they started coming out with things like, you can't do a mother-in-law joke, you must not do a mother-in-law joke, which is great for me, because I like my mother-in-law. It's a daughter I can't stand. But, you know, it changed. It all
jokes,
changed.
Aren't they? They're just jokes.
They're just jokes. You're not there to offend anyone. You're not trying to hurt anyone. They're just jokes.
I said this last year.
But people think too hard sometimes about comedy.
Yeah.
When you go to see a comedy show,
it's a comedy.
Enjoy it.
Well,
it's the best feeling in the world.
Me and my friends, I think it was last August, we went to watch Jim Davidson at Skegness in the Embassy Theatre.
Brilliant.
Now, we just went for the day, because I know Jim quite well. We went to watch his show. We were on the front row. Obviously, he spotted it. Well, he knew he was going. But we had the best 2 hours. And on the way back, because we drove back, me and my friends, we had Jethro on the CD. And listened to him all the way back. Now, these are sort of comedians that would be cancelled, or Jim has been cancelled, Jethro's no longer with us. But we had such a great night, just laughing. It's not serious, it's just jokes.
The best thing in the world for you. I mean, I used to say to Doddy, I talk about Doddy because he had such an influence on me. I got so close to Doddy. I actually carried his coffin at his funeral. That's how close I got to him. And I used to say to Ken, "Oh, Ken, you know, there's no television chances anymore, no opportunities." And he said to me, "Oh, you're doing well, you're working all over the place," which I am and was. And he used to say, "Don't worry about it." I said, "No, Ken, but I want to get on television." And in the end, I was moaning that much. He said to me, "Look, if you want your name in lights, change it to Exit." Isn't that lovely? And Doddy always had a way of pinpointing everything with just...
So the last time I saw Ken Dodd, I think it was at the Theatre Royal at Nottingham. And I think that's probably where he made one of his first appearances at Theatre Royal at Nottingham.
I think, you might be right. 1954,
we went to see him there, and he started at 7:30. Midnight is still on. And after people had left, not because they weren't enjoying the show, because the buses had turned up or the lifts had turned up, but he just went on and on.
But he loved it, Lee. Yeah. He lived for it, you know. I mean, people still say to me, what was Doddy so good at? And I always say the biggest thing that Doddy had, apart from his talent, was the work ethic. I've never seen anyone work so hard at something in their life. I mean, I'd be in Doddy's house and he'd be writing jokes on his hand, and I said, "Ken, we're only going to the shops or whatever." Yeah, but I just might meet one person, and I've got all my ammunition with him. You know, he said to me once, he wrote all his jokes on his fingers, He said, and I shook hands with someone and they stole me act. Isn't that lovely?
I tell you, he was one of my other favourite comedians from the 70s and 80s, and that was Larry Grayson. Can you remember him? He was a great comedian.
Yeah, I never met him.
Yeah, he's absolutely hilarious, that man. Still watch some of his stuff on YouTube.
But I wrote for Jimmy Tarbuck for many years. Jimmy was so good to me. I even spoke to him last week. He's still working, he's still filling theatres, you know, but you just don't see that on
and just
television.
before we go, John...
We're not going, are we?
Yeah, at time's up.
Can we not do an hour special or
No.
something?
You're back on the TV, that's the main thing.
That's the main thing.
But you've got a couple of books there to
Yes,
show
I
us.
have. Well, during COVID, we're all locked down, and I'm sat at home thinking, well, I'm a bit old to have a gap here. You know, and our industry was demolished by COVID, obviously, and many of the people are still struggling because they got no money. People were what they call excluded from any support. So
what we got here,
I'm
then?
sat at home. I wrote this book all about my time with Doddy and stuff. And it's actually a million seller. No, sorry, I've got 1 million in our cellar. So this is all about my time with Doddy and
what's the other one?
And now I write little history books as well. I have a love for history. You'll know that from some of the jokes I've been telling.
Yeah, they are quite old, aren't they?
Thank you. Nothing wrong with old material. I'm just looking at your suit and thinking, old material.
I'm not debating, am I?
So I write these as well, all about like Babyface Nelson and John Dillinger. These are my books. People collect stuff like this, you know. They're called bin men. So,
John, an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Well, I think
That is John Martin.
It's gone very well.
Human Joke Factory and some great books. I want to read that on the train on the way home.
I think the rehearsal's gone very well. I think we should go for a taste
this is going to take pride of place in my bin. Anyway, coming up next, we've got Right versus Left.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. Maybe he's not lying. That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time for Right versus Left. We've got Susie Stride and Henry Bolton. Your first time on the show, so
Yes.
got the yes or no quiz coming up later. Might try and catch you out with that one. But the budget, this disastrous Labour budget, Henry, I visit small businesses every single week, and the one thing they say is that the NIC rise is going to cripple them.
Yep.
It's not in yet. The changing employment laws is going to hurt them as well. I went to a little tea shop last week in my constituency. They've had to lay a member of staff off already. I don't think this government and Rachel Reeves quite get it.
If they don't get it, they're daft. I think this is ideological as much as anything. I don't think it's just about the sums adding up. But I've just set up a small business, and this is a major element of your financial planning. And there are certainly, this came up as I was putting that business together. And for a fact, I'm now looking at employing people in a different way, on a more freelance basis and so on, than I was before. Yeah. Now, that's not good for the individuals concerned. But then on the other hand, if you can't afford to get the business going and to maintain that business because of the onerous, you've got increases in business rates, you've got all sorts of other things that are coming on board as well. Add them all together, and it's extreme pressure. And there will be a lot of people who weren't in my position, but who will make the decision not to try and set up a small business. And there will be small businesses, and I know one in the same field, that is actually considering either selling or closing his business for this very reason. So we haven't felt the effect of this yet, but it's going to be dramatic.
Let's come to Susie. Susie, this is not it wasn't a great budget for business, surely.
I think it's really important in all things in life to talk about context. So we've just had, what have we had? 14 years.
Oh, here we go.
No, but it's not here we go. Can I just say something? If you in anything in life, you're not going to say, the people that have been in 5 minutes, it's their fault. They've been in 5 minutes.
No, this is a matter of choice.
And 14 years of what the Conservatives have done to this country, living standards, wage stagnation. Let's ask anyone in this country, go out and knock on some doors around here, ask them, do they feel their lives are better off?
How about knocking on some doors of small businesses and asking them? Because I'm yet to find one that's happy with this.
Now, within the context of that, 14 years of a disgraceful government that basically there's very hard to see anything they did right, they have left us, and I'm going to use the language, a massive black hole. Because they have. And the fact of the matter is any economist from any side will tell you they've left us with a massive black hole. Whatever amount of money, they've left us with a massive black hole. Therefore, we have to make good, right, but difficult decisions.
I can't leave that unchallenged because, look, although I have said many times publicly that the Conservatives, after their 14 years of appalling government, frankly, don't deserve anybody's vote, the fact of the matter is...
Just one thing, Andy, just to clarify this, that's your opinion, and somebody from the Conservative Party may come on at some stage and defend their 14 years, their record of 14 years, and actually, put to bed that argument.
Indeed, and I do think there are some people in the Conservative Party who are extremely competent people. Yeah. I just think that they've got their own internal problems. But some, I said. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that this Labour government is making its own decisions about how it spends its money. So you can't tell me, this £22 billion black hole isn't a black hole because it only exists because this government has decided to put so much money into net zero and to pay the Shagos.
In 8 months.
£170 billion to net zero.
Look, if an economist was here, they would say, in 8 months, i.e. 5 minutes, you cannot, in political terms, you cannot suddenly turn around the ship, the great ship that is this country and our economy. You can't do that. It's not realistic. You can't have quick fixes.
We are in this, go for growth. We're going for growth when you're suppressing growth.
Because of almost 15 years of Tory rule. What we are listening to is the people out there on the street who want a good NHS, who want houses being built for their children. We are focusing on good public services, so people can get a dentist appointment.
You can't do that.
These things cost money. We're not going to cut those things.
No, they cost money, absolutely right. But you can't do that if people haven't got a job.
And you can't do that if you're pumping all your spare cash into net zero.
I tell you what, and you can bring me back on this programme, after 5 years, unemployment's going to go down in this country, the economy is going to be in a better place in this country, NHS waiting lists are going to come down, people will be able to get a dentist appointment, you'll be able to swim in your river without having sewage, do you know what I mean, swimming through sewage. This is what metaphor for what the Tories have done, you're not Tories, for this country.
Who's paying the taxes? If your businesses aren't employing people, OK, and there are businesses going...
The businesses are employing people. There's nothing to say, look, this is a difficult decision.
Susie,
and it is a difficult
businesses are laying people off.
They absolutely are.
Look,
and that's a fact of the matter. And
where are you going to make the savings? Because where would you make the savings? Where would you cut some soldiers,
net
cut
zero.
some doctors,
No, scrap net zero.
nurses?
Scrap net zero, 170
we
billion,
are commercially, the economy...
I mean, that's actually an area which is creating a lot of jobs and generating a lot of jobs.
Commercially, we can meet...
You're going to spur an industrial, revival.
Commerce and business employs people. People earn salaries. People pay taxes on those salaries. That goes into the coffers. That's where your money comes from. And if you are not helping those businesses to grow and thrive, then you're not helping the economy. You're not going for growth. Now, hear me out, because those businesses are competing on the international market a lot of the time and in domestic market against China, against other countries.
Absolutely,
and what are we doing? We are spaffing all this money on net zero at the same, tying our hands, economic hands behind our backs, and letting them have a free run whilst they're still building their coal power.
I will not be lectured by anyone that's on the right in this country, because as far as I'm concerned,
come on.
After 14 years, schools are in a worse place, hospitals are in a worse place. As I've already said, people can't get a dentist appointment, sewage in our rivers, kids learning in porta cabins. I mean, this is the Tory record. I understand that you're reform, but for me, it is that...
I'm not a reform. I'm a member of the Social Democrat Party.
The point is listen to me. I believe...
Can we just take the temperature down? It's time for the yes or no quiz.
This country are coming.
It's getting quite excited. Sorry, Susie. A lot of finger wagging. It was nearly leapt on you there, Henry. Yes or no quiz. Something tells me that you're going to struggle with this.
Probably.
OK. So, Henry, do members of Parliament, politicians, candidates need more protection?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Susie, should this government give away the Chagos Islands and get the taxpayer to pay for it?
No.
Oh, Henry.
No.
Number 3, Henry, should biological males be allowed to compete in women's sports?
No.
And Susie?
No.
What do you think about that? And Susie, should Mike Amos, is it Amos or Amesbury?
Amesbury.
Mike Amesbury.
Yeah.
Should he step down, Henry?
Yes.
No.
Ooh. And Susie, has Donald Trump made a good start?
No.
Henry?
Yes.
5-5. Well done. Do you want to come back on one? What about the Mike Amesbury? That was a bit controversial, that one. Why shouldn't he step down?
I don't know enough about it. I'm more interested in the fact that Trump made a good start. No.
Well, you're saying no because you don't like his politics and what he's doing. From his point of view, he's got out of those starting blocks like a rocket.
Yeah.
No, I don't like this thing of, if we don't bend to him, all the tech giant stuff. As I say, children above the tech giants, children above Google and Facebook any day, children above billionaires.
To be fair, that's a different question. Do you agree with what he's doing?
Oh, I might not give you tariffs if you don't sort out your Online Safety Act. Go home, mate.
OK, guys.
Can't wait till you see the back of him.
It's 5-5. It's been a feisty discussion this week. But thanks for coming. Thanks, Susie, for coming. Hope to get you on in 5 years, like you say. And coming up next, we've got Last Orders with singer and songwriter Belle Savvy.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Unsettled across many parts of the Mediterranean, some heavy rain, also some thunderstorms, particularly affecting parts of Spain. Some heavy showers for Madeira and parts of Tenerife, and some heavy and prolonged spells of potentially thundery rain, particularly across southeastern parts of Spain. Some heavy showers affecting Nice and also Rome, parts of the Adriatic coastline, but largely settled across Greece. And it is largely an improving picture as we head into next week, with the best of the temperatures once again across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the weekend, we can expect some cold and frosty mornings with some fog in places, cloudier in the north at times, but otherwise high pressure largely building, which means lots of settled and fine conditions to come. And we've ended the day too on plenty of fine and clear weather, but a frontal system just edging its way into the northwest at times, so turning cloudier here overnight with some outbreaks of rain and some fairly blustery winds too across the far north of Scotland. But elsewhere, plenty of clear skies. That means temperatures are going to dip away quickly, turning rather cold overnight, likely to see some frost and some fog by the time we reach the morning, possibly even some freezing fog where we see temperatures drop below zero. So to start the weekend on Saturday, a little bit of a mixed bag across Scotland. It is going to be rather damp at times, still rather blustery around northwestern coast, starting to turn a little bit brighter across the northwest, though we can't rule out a few showers moving through here. Quite a damp start across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, perhaps some higher cloud making things not turn quite as chilly, but elsewhere across England and Wales, another chilly start to the day, likely to see some frost and fog in places. But that should clear rather nicely through the course of the morning, allowing plenty of sunshine to start the day and eventually brightening up across Scotland too with some sunny spells here. But where we see this band of cloud and possibly some light rain at times, that's set to stick there through the afternoon and perhaps bringing in some hazy sunny spells elsewhere too. But temperatures fairly similar to where they've been to today, so highs of around 10 to 11 Celsius. Now for the second half of the weekend, once again a cold and frosty start, particularly across the south and southeast, and once again we'll start to see a build of higher cloud for northern areas, but it should stay largely dry, away from the northwest though, where once again we can expect some outbreaks of rain. And into next week, high pressure sticking around, so once again lots of fine settled weather and some sunshine. Bye-bye.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
That was a poor ring of the bell, but it's time for last orders at the bar. And I've got the very lovely Belle Savvy, singer, songwriter, beautiful lady, Brazilian lady. And was talking earlier about you growing up in Brazil. And, you know, we've had a Brazilian lady on before, Belle, and she spoke to me about the poverty, about the way of life, the different class system in Brazil. That's certainly coming to this country in a different culture and everything. It's a bit of an eye-opener for you.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I want to say that I'm an absolute, crazy fan of your culture. So I love being in here. I love being, starting to feel a little bit British and having the opportunity of having a life here, coming from a country like Brazil that has, as you said, so much poverty, and not only poverty, but lack of opportunities. It's incredible to have a chance to change and come to a country like this. It's awesome. It's really an honor. And well, I can tell you a lot of stories of how my life was before, but I think that here you have more of a structure and more people has more opportunities. In Brazil, even when you are from, let's say, a middle class, sometimes you still lack opportunity because the system is so broken that you don't have opportunities to have a better school, better education, or the health system is terrifying in Brazil as well. So I'm not slagging off my country, but I can see the differences.
Yeah, there's a difference,
and is
but your English is pretty good.
Thank you.
It's very good, actually. It's probably better than mine. But how do you learn to speak English in a poor country?
Yeah, so I came from quite a simple background myself, and my mum couldn't really give me any opportunities of learning any English, but I'm very stubborn. And when I put something in my head, I actually go for it. So I just fell in love with England. and through Harry Potter too.
Harry Potter?
Yeah, I know. It's my obsession since I was like 11 years old, and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to learn it, and I really want to move to the UK and pursue my career, because since then I was already engaged with arts and entertainment, so I was like, I know we're talking about an 11-year-old kid, but I was always very stubborn. So I was very driven, and I started, I'm self-taught in English, so I started developing my English with Harry Potter movies.
Okay.
And just doing like the scripts and dialogues myself. And I remember that this old English teacher of mine in school gave me my first English dictionary and told me, that's your best friend now, you just go for it.
It's an amazing story. So from being an avid Harry Potter fan, learning English, and then getting into music, singing and songwriting, and becoming a bit of a singing sensation. How did that happen?
So this, when I was about, I don't know, like 16, I started writing my own songs, and I was never able to write it in Portuguese. Don't know why, even being my mother language. I was always so obsessed with English that I wanted to also develop this skill in English. And I just went for it, and again, it was very natural for me to write my songs in English. I don't know why. I think that English is like the most beautiful language in the world. But
yeah, you're bound to say that.
I'm gonna have to say that. And specifically, the British accent is so beautiful. So I was just developing it a lot, and I felt confident in that, and it just happened. So in 2020. 1920, I had my first opportunity to actually engage in the industry here, and that's when I moved to the UK.
So how's the music scene different in Brazil compared to this country?
Oh, it's completely different.
It's got that Latin sort of feel over there, haven't you?
I think the UK is really, it's incredible for arts in general, music, entertainment in general. You guys are very open. The country is very open for different things. There is so many talents, and there is, again, layers of different talents that can be seen and heard. I think in Brazil it's a little bit more, it's more like, I don't know how to express in English, but it's more about who you know than actually the talent you have. In here, I don't feel like this. In here, I feel that if you have a talent and you go for it, you have opportunities to show your talent and grow.
And do you think the UK is a tolerant society? Welcoming?
I lived in other countries before, and I think the UK is really good.
Where have you lived, Belle?
I lived in Germany. For a year and a half, and here is much more tolerant. I personally never had any problems at all with any type of intolerance at all. See me finally.
So when you sat down, do you play an instrument at all? Do you play an instrument?
A little bit of piano, but.
So when you're writing your songs, what specifically, what message do you want to get across? Is it personal stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because I came from a poorer background, and I was always very determined and I would say stubborn, and I never let anyone put me down, even coming from a place where you would look and say, oh, she's deluded. She's not going to end up in London. She's not going to be a music singer, whatever, a pop singer, international singer. I always believed in myself, so I tried to bring everything I've been through in my life, which I did have a rough path, and put in my music to try to connect to other people as well. Inspiring, connecting, and finding like other people to kind of see that strength, and just bringing this to them as well, because sometimes it's difficult, you know.
Okay, so you're a very driven young lady, very ambitious, worked hard. Let's see if you can pull a pint, because the reason we're behind the barbell is it's last orders and it's on the pull. So if you grab one of those pint pots there, the one with the colours on.
Cool.
Yeah. This is the neck oil. This is the easiest one to pull. Barbie's smiling in the background, I can see her. You've got to pull the tap back, and you've got 30 seconds to pull the perfect pint. Go for it.
Please don't judge me.
Well, I'm going to judge you. I'm going to mark you out of 10, so you can pull it back. Oh, dear. No, she's got the tilt on. That's looking quite good. And let's have a look. Yeah, keep going.
Really?
Keep going. Yeah, right to the top. Then plonk it on the bar. That's not the bar. Below the bar. That's not too bad, is it? I've seen.
I wouldn't be very happy if someone served me that.
You wouldn't pay for that, would you? No.
Nah.
You'd probably
so that can be for free for someone.
Yeah, you'd probably leave. But we have a culture in this country, Bella, of people going out on a Friday, Saturday night in a pub having a few, singing on karaoke and stuff like that. Is it the same back in the old country?
It's a bit different, but still quite connected. We also go to bars.
Yeah.
But we are very much about food, like all about food, to be fair. I think that here the drinking culture is stronger than in my country, and we are more about eating.
Yeah.
So, but we go to bars as well, and we love karaoke's, and we love, like, we have something called Roda de Samba, which is a samba place that you go and people do literally like a round, like you go around and everybody sits and there is a table and everybody that plays music and plays samba music or pagode, which is another type of music.
What?
Pagode.
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 There you go. Very good.
What's that?
Is a type of
I am
Brazilian.
multilingual, by the way. Yeah.
Okay.
Not really. So breaking into the music industry, Belle, in this country, obviously it gives you a bit of a profile as well. So you're going to have, obviously, I would imagine you've got a big social media following as well, and young girl is looking at you thinking, I want to look like you. And what sort of advice can you give to young girls wanting to look like you, be a pop star? Because for everyone that makes it, there are tens of thousands that don't make it, isn't there?
Yeah, I think that for me, I understand that there is a lot of people that would say there is thousands of the ones that don't make it, but I think that most of them is because they don't believe in themselves as much as they could.
Okay.
There's going to be so many things they are going to tell you, don't go, you know, like there was a point that I had to have 3 jobs to, you know, like secure my life, and still I would have to find a way to be here and there to be a singer as well, you know, and you just
I
have
want
to
to ask you a
believe
question.
yourself.
I've not asked this one before. We've had some singers on before, entertainers. If you were stuck on a desert island on your own with a record player or a CD player, what would be and you could take one record with you to play all the time, what would it be?
Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode.
Depeche Mode? Wow, that's...
Absolutely.
I remember them.
Yeah, I love that song. 100% is that song. That song has a connection to me that is like unreal.
Wow. Belle, it's been lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you
A great
too.
guest, international flavour on the show today. Thanks for coming, Belle. That's Last Orders. Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. Coming up next, we've got State of the Nation. Have a good one.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the weekend, we can expect some cold and frosty mornings with some fog in places, cloudier in the north at times, but otherwise high pressure largely building, which means lots of settled and fine conditions to come. And we've ended the day too on plenty of fine and clear weather, but a frontal system just edging its way into the northwest at times, so turning cloudier here overnight with some outbreaks of rain and some fairly blustery winds too across the far north of Scotland. But elsewhere, plenty of clear skies. That means temperatures are going to dip away quickly, turning rather cold overnight, likely to see some frost and some fog by the time we reach the morning, possibly even some freezing fog where we see temperatures drop below 0. So to start the weekend on Saturday, a little bit of a mixed bag across Scotland. It is going to be rather damp at times, still rather blustery around northwestern coast, starting to turn a little bit brighter across the northwest, though we can't rule out a few showers moving through here. Quite a damp start across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, perhaps some higher cloud making things not turn quite as chilly, but elsewhere across England and Wales, another chilly start to the day, likely to see some frost and fog in places, but that should clear rather nicely through the course of the morning, allowing plenty of sunshine to start the day and eventually brightening up across Scotland too with some sunny spells here, but where we see this band of cloud and possibly some light rain at times, that's set to stick there through the afternoon and perhaps bringing in some hazy sunny spells elsewhere too, but temperatures fairly similar to where they've been to today, so highs of around 10 to 11 Celsius. Now for the second half of the weekend, once again a cold and frosty start, particularly across the south and southeast, and once again we'll start to see a build of higher cloud